everyone. Welcome back to Real Talk with REsimpli, where we get real about real estate, business, and everything in between. I'm your host, Chenay Jordan.
And I'm Don Carlson. Today, we got someone who's not just influencing the industry, he is re-engineering it. The man behind the nation's largest transaction coordinating company, simplifying closing for wholesalers everywhere, Mr. David Olds. Welcome to the podcast, man.
Guys, thank you so much. Big honor to be here. I can't believe I made the cut.
You did.
We're so happy to have you. So David's journey is incredible. He spotted a huge gap in the industry, launched Easy REI Closings back in 2020, and turned it into a powerhouse that helps investors do more deals and make more money. He's innovative, he's impactful, and he's changing how investors scale across the country. So David, you ready to jump into this?
That was all very kind of you guys. You're making me blush, but thank you. And all of that, people that are listening where it says I did something, I have an amazing team that does all that stuff. So I will give all the credit where it's due.
We love that. Yeah, you do have an amazing team that I've had the pleasure of meeting. So
they're awesome.
Yes, I agree. So
cool,
let's do it. All right. So David, take us back to the beginning. What did life look like in the moment that you decided to jump into real estate with less than $5,000 and a beat up work truck?
So it went back a little bit further than that. It started back in 2002. My wife and I, we just got married and we bought this house. And, I kind of grew up, my dad was a military guy up in Boston. We lived in Boston. And he was always like the house fix it guy. Let's update, let's remodel, do that. So as a kid, of course, you hate that, right? I'm like, when I grow up, I'm not going to make my kids cut the grass or rake the leaves or, carry shingles up the ladder, any of that type of stuff. But lo and behold, we all turn out like our parents. So
as hard as we try not to.
God, as hard as we try not to, we do, right? It's at 54 now, I think back, I'm like, oh my God, I sound like my mother. But we bought our first house. We had no idea that we were buying a foreclosure, but we bought it and, we're in there for a little bit. And I'm like, well, let's start fixing stuff up, and I also worked for like a large hardware company, hardware store type chain in Florida. So, we fixed it up and we sold it 2 years later and we made like $60,000, 50 something and change. And my realtors were going to closing. She says, hey, you don't have to pay tax on this. I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, well, dummy, you lived in it. It's homesteaded. You don't pay tax on that. I'm like, oh my God, that's brilliant. I'm like, well, let's do that again. So we bought an even more expensive house, did the same thing, spent some money fixing it up. And on that one, we made like 100,000. But during that time on that second property, I was in the Orlando airport, MCO. We've all been there. And I was waiting on our kids to come in as unaccompanied minors. And I was in the bookstore, just leaning on the counter or leaning on the rack. And I picked up this book and just started reading it. And I'm like, oh, this is really great. And I bought it. And it was Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So it's the most cliche thing ever, right?
The gateway book.
It is, right? Like it hooked 80% of all investors out there, right? Especially before podcasts came out. So, I went home, just bought that and consumed it. And, at the end, Kiyosaki says, for those people who've read it, hey, if you want to be in oil, go be around oil people, stock people, real estate, go join a local real estate investment group, right? So I'm like, go to my big computer. This is like 2003, 2004, something like that. It's my big monitor, my keyboard, and I'm on web crawler because Google doesn't exist yet. And, I go in there and I'm like, Real Estate Group Orlando or whatever you had to do back then. And it connected me with a group called CFRI, Central Florida Real Estate Investors. And I went there and that's where I kind of fell into this. Luckily it was a really big group and they had a lot of meetings, probably like 4 meetings a week all over Central Florida. And that was where I got my first exposure to listening to people who were doing deals and going to little weekend classes and all of that kind of stuff. And so I lived in Florida until 2009. So from that period on, we started doing like flips and things kind of on the side. We both had full-time jobs, but we were doing these flips and it was great. We're making 20,000, 40,000, 60,000. It varied. The biggest one was 100. And all of that was great until the end times, until 2009, when the world came to a crashing end. And, just before that, I had started looking around. I'm like, well, where else can we invest? Because Orlando was getting very expensive, right? It was a hot market, of course. So, I went to I went to a boot camp. I went for training. This guy, Dave Lindahl, he did a class actually up in Boston. So I flew up there with my brother and he talked about emerging markets and also apartment buildings. And just from listening to that and then doing some research, that's how we ended up in Chattanooga. Chattanooga at the time it was the first city in the country to have high-speed internet to every residence. Volkswagen was opening their first production facility here. Amazon opened 2 fulfillment centers. North Georgia is full of textiles, right? So it's a very diverse economy, even though it's small. And Amazon was said to bring in 10,000 new jobs in a county or an MSA that had a population of like 180,000. That's an enormous pop, right? So I'm like, that's where we want to go because the market's going to shoot up, right? This is a good bet. So literally, with the crash, by the time that happened, I was working for 84 Lumber. My wife at the time was a purchasing manager for a custom home builder. So we both got let go. And, as you said, $5,000 in a pickup truck, that's literally what we left Florida with because all that money we'd made, nobody saves that. We're going on vacations and buying cars and TVs and paying credit cards.
The Big Short like that?
YOLO.
That was it.
Yeah, like literally that, like I had bought a house and remodeled it and couldn't even sell it. Like that's a whole different story. And I ended up lease optioning it out. So when I say $5,000, that was the lease option fee. So literally we're moving out in a moving van and this lady was moving in and handed me a cashier's check. And I'm like, fantastic. Make sure you pay the rent on time. Send it to me in Chattanooga. But we moved to Chattanooga, didn't know anybody. So it's literally the story of like burning the boats. Like we're leaving everything, our family, our support system, like, the ability to call a friend and get a job. And we're going to this new city and, we're going to go buy rentals. We're going to buy apartment complexes. That was what we were thinking. There were some flaws with that based on the timing, but I had been going back and forth to Chattanooga and we had contracted a couple of properties up here and we bought a couple of sub-2 subject to the existing mortgage. But this one we had contracted probably like 2-3 months before. And I don't know if you guys have ever looked at a house and then, you kind of forget what it really is, but then you're like, oh, it's going to be fine. Well, we drove straight through to Chattanooga. It's 577 miles because I'd made that trip a bunch. And everybody's exhausted, right? And of that 5,000, I had to go to the closing because we literally closed on this property the day we moved in. And dude, it was in like not the best section of Chattanooga, right? Not good. It's this 1900s house. Floors are a little crooked. Doors don't close all the way. And again, I'm like, yeah, I saw this house a couple months ago. It's going to be fine. Everything's going to be great. We're just going to move in there temporarily. And, if you drive 600 miles, you're just exhausted. You've been to a closing. You got a wife, 2 boys, 3 fat dogs. My brother was there. We get there and it's like 7 o'clock at night. It's everything I could do to pull out like a couple of mattresses, right? Just throw them on the floor in there. And, as a dad and a husband and all that, and you're like, okay, we left this really nice remodeled house and we've come to this. And like half the power wasn't working. The electrical box was messed up. Like the door didn't close all the way and it's been vacant for a few months. So like there's a mouse inside. And I'm like, what in the fuck did I do? Like, this is the worst mistake ever. Like, I'm like, how could I take my family? We were in Deltona, Florida, in this beautifully remodeled little ranch house. I'm like, to this, like cobwebby. It's like a nightmare. I'm gonna tell you, that was like the worst night of my life. I literally laid on that mattress with a fan because it's June in Chattanooga and it's hot as you can imagine, and like cried myself to sleep. I'm like,
I was gonna say, did you cry?
I did. I'm gonna tell you legitimately. And like, just how could I do this? Like, we could have stayed there. I could have found a job. Like, we could have figured this out. And that was probably like, I've had like, I can count on one hand, like we all can, like really bad days. And that was one of them. And, the next day though, you have to get up, right? This is what separates the people who make it, who don't. And the next day you're like, okay, we're going to figure this out. What are we going to do? And my goal, remember that apartment boot camp I went to? Like my goal was to buy apartment complexes. But what was going on in 2009? Banks were taking properties back. They were not giving new loans. Like that was a fantasy. And I didn't have a job now. So the whole fantasy of it, you could just do this and use somebody else's credit. Like that was nonsense. So I'm like, okay, well, I know how to wholesale. I've never done it before, but let's go get some blank bandit signs and start writing We Buy Houses and our phone number. And we put those things up all over town. And, people ask us, why were you successful? What made you special? I'm like, well, first of all, there's nothing special. I'm just a nitwit who's too dumb to quit. But, we just, for me,
you had to figure it out. I mean,
you had to figure it out.
You had to figure it out. You and I have actually talked about like when you were wholesaling.
Yeah.
And I believe you mentioned like wholesaling out of the white pages. Like, because this was obviously like a totally different time, right? I mean, there was no.
It's a different time, a different place.
I mean, totally different time.
Galaxy far, far away.
Yeah. Can you talk about like
Sure.
what it was like wholesaling?
So different, man. There was no REsimpli
now.
Yeah, dude, there was none of that existed. Like, the reason we were successful was from the moment I put my feet on the ground in the morning, getting out of bed, till the moment I went back to bed, real estate was the thing that consumed me. Right. Like, that was the thing that was always in my brain. So yeah, like, what were your strategies? Throw something in the white pages, throw something in the yellow pages, bandit signs, literally driving for dollars. And there was no apps. Like, I would go home, I would
write it down.
Yeah, no, literally the yellow
paper.
pages.
Yeah.
I had it on the little armrest, and I would just literally just go up and down streets, like a typewriter, up and down. And I would come home and give it to my wife, and she was a champ. And she would literally sit, through the property appraiser and pull out the mailing address. And, if it was an absentee owner, and we just mailed yellow letters. And then, then we got a little fancy. We were mimeographing, photocopying, whatever, like heavy stock paper into our own postcards and cutting them with a paper cutter, because we did not have the money to even buy postcards to hand address. Because every dollar we had was for envelopes and stamps. And, that's how we did it. Like, we went out every Friday night.
Going through names in the white pages and like picking people out, or like
if we had to look people up. Yeah. Like, we were, and gosh, technology and software like what you guys have is so amazing now, but none of that existed back then.
No.
You had to figure, there was no skip tracing. Like, even when skip tracing came out 6 years later, it was $1 a name. Like, it was ridiculous. You couldn't do it in bulk. But yeah, we just did whatever it took. Like, we literally were like, okay, we're not going to be stopped by something. Like, there's always a way to figure it out. So yeah, we went out every Friday night and put out at least 100 bandit signs. I don't know if anybody's ever put out 100 bandit signs. It takes 3 or 4 hours. And we're doing that at 10 o'clock at night, whether it's snow, rain, took our kids to, the amusement park, whatever it was, every single Friday. Sometimes we went out at midnight. Sometimes we went out at 8 o'clock, but every single Friday for like 2 years. Like, we had signs every place in this town, and that caused some problems with the city too. But yeah, I mean, driving for dollars every day we were out there. And because of that, we had rapid success.
Did you do door knocking as like one of your strategies too?
I did not. I don't love cold calling, and I don't love door knocking, but we would. I had this old Jeep after, I got a couple grand together. I bought this old Jeep that didn't even have a top on it. And during the summer, I remember driving around.
Sounds like my car.
We would put out signs. Dude, it was crazy. We were like the most resourceful cavemen wholesalers ever. And my two boys, who were like probably 15 and 17 then, they would jump out of the back and they would run up to the vacant house and put like a little sticky thing on the door. Like, hey, I want to buy your house. And then run back in and we just keep driving. Yeah, dude, I mean, it's
like doorbell ditching real estate.
It was, right?
Style.
Yeah.
Or ding dong ditch.
Yeah, I had bought, or somebody gave it to me years ago, like this heavy duty kind of industrial, like office printer. And we could run like, heavy card stock through there, and we'd make like door hangers. We had a paper cutter. We were industrious, man. We just figured it out. So yeah, that's how we got started. And, we got our first deal within like 2 or 3 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah. So, what I tell people is, if you think it's going to take you a year to get your first deal, or 6 months or 3 months, look at how much time you're dedicating to the process, and let's compress time, so to make it so people can understand, what is there, like 5,200 steps or feet or something in a mile? Well, I could walk 1 foot a day and it would take me 5,000 days, or I could walk 1,000 feet a day and it would take me 5 days, or I could just do it all at once, or I could do it all in an hour, right? Like, how do you compress time and just do things faster? And that's always been the thing for me, is how do we get to the end, right? Figure out what the end is, and then how do we get there quickly, right? Oh, and the end could be, I want to live on a beach and live on residual income. Great, cool. Well, let's work that backwards. How many rentals do I have to have? What's the cash flow? How do I work that process? And just, that was just from being around early smart mentors that kind of taught us that way of thinking.
Absolutely. And that's a great point that you brought up too, like with like what is like the end goal, because the end goal is different for a lot of different people. Like,
sure.
When you come in,
and it'll change. Over the course of your life, it will change.
Absolutely. And it's like, when you go in though, most people are like, oh, I want 1,000 doors. I want to do 20 deals a month.
Get 20 paid off houses that are in good shape, and you're going to be good, really good. You're better than the majority of the people out there.
No, absolutely. And then like, what does it take to run like a business of that size? It's like a lot of people is like, actually, I don't I don't want the smoke. Like, so
no, man, I've run companies scaled up with, 30 something people, and I've run small companies with 4. And, we are a very scaled up company at Easy REI Closings, just by the nature of what we do. But like, if it all went away tomorrow and I had to go back to wholesaling, man, I'd have a small team, 4, maybe 5 people. We'd run fast and lean and probably like 2 markets. I wouldn't go back to being in 28 markets or any of that nonsense. I just, I get it though. People think it's sexy to have a scaled out company, and it's awesome, but you have to have a team behind you to be able to have that kind
100%.
of infrastructure.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to go back to again, kind of like your story of being a '08 survivor, essentially. Like, you're still here, you're still kicking, man. You have
I don't know if there's a
heart.
ribbon for that,
I'll give you one. I'll make you one. Because but obviously the market that we're in now, like, it's not 2020, it's not 21, like it's turning into a little bit of a different market. I would say more like normal, but
I think it's normal. Yeah. I think the people who say it's 2008 don't know what the fuck they're talking about.
No,
it was really bad. Like, Chenay, you probably remember, like, Dan Rather came on the news at 6 o'clock and said, we don't know if the government's opening tomorrow. Like, we're not even
familiar to today.
Yeah, well, but like, because we don't have money, what I mean?
Yeah,
like, it's a completely different universe. I think these are normal times. I think there's some politics that kind of mess stuff up, but they all can't get their act together up there. But yeah, this is very normal. People will post like, foreclosures are up, 300%. Yeah, from last year, where they were like, the lowest in history. We're still not even anywhere near, like, we're not even at like 10% of what was going on in '08. So I don't understand why people love those kind of scare tactics. And I don't know.
It's
social media, clickbait.
Yeah, it's clicks now.
I look at it and just roll my eyes.
But yeah, like that, I'm thank you for saying that too. Cause like I was a mortgage broker in like in 17 and 18. And so I had to get my NMLS license because of '08. Like, I had to take the big test and do all that stuff. But it reminds me of that market, like just 5 or just like 8 years ago, something like that. So I'm glad you said that.
I mean, the last property that I did in Florida, like, if you want to compare, 742 Trafalgar Street in Deltona, Florida. So I bought it in 09 when we moved. So I bought it in like August of '08. So before we knew we were in a crash. Like, again, we can have a way longer conversation. We knew there was some kind of slowdown happening, but nobody knew. Like, we should have known. God, every single one of us should have known, but now we're smarter. But anyways, I bought this property, and you guys are smart. You're in real estate. So this house, identical house, every house in Florida, a lot of them are the same. 1 block over, 2 blocks down, it just sold for $214. Literally $214. I got it as a probate deal for $97. Can we all agree that that's a good deal?
That's a great deal.
That's a great deal.
Right? Thumbs up. We're all buying. Awesome. So I bought it in August, whatever it was. I finished remodeling it.
How much did you put into it?
I did so much of the work myself, and I would, maybe like 20, 25, not a ton, but I did the labor. I scraped the ceilings. I was younger, skinnier, and had a little more energy back then. And so anyways, I called my agent her name was Shayna, in like beginning of November or something. I'm like, hey, Shayna, we're done with this deal. I want you to come over and list it. She's like, well, it's the holidays. Why don't we just wait till January? We don't want to get a bunch of days on market. I'm like, makes perfect sense. No problem. I understand. I'm not in a super hurry, but I am moving. We kind of knew we were moving, in the spring. So she comes over in January and she's like, hey, it looks good. I'm like, I know. She's like, you did a great job. I know. I said, what do you think we can sell it for? She has a binder, because this is, again, no iPads, no Google, the binder, and she's flipping through the MLS pages. And she's like, well, kind of based on this one sold for this and this sold for that. And I'm looking at it. I'm like, that's really weird. She's like, probably around like 147.
What?
I'm like, Shayna, 1 block over, 2 blocks down, 214. And she says, yeah, that was then. I'm like, Shayna, that's 25%. 6 months ago, 8 months ago. Like, that's fucking crazy. What do you mean? She's like, well, this one was a foreclosure, this one with this. And I'm looking at the pictures. I'm like, yeah, but that house had like clothes left everywhere. Like, people just left. It's not remodeled. My house is remodeled. I'm better, right? Because I'm so smart. And she's like, yeah, it doesn't matter. Like, this is what houses are selling for. I'm like, I can't sell for that. That's ridiculous. Because I was thinking I was going to make $100,000 and be out of town, be going to Chattanooga. And she's like, well, like, that's what houses are selling for. The market's really slow right now. I'm like, dude, like a year ago, we were selling houses in, 2 months. And, so now I'm like, well, I got to sell this thing. It's like, I'm not staying here. I thought I was the most magnanimous SOB in the world. I'm like, okay, my house is awesome, which it was nice. I'll sell it for 159. I'll give it away for 159. She's like, all right. She's a listing broker. She didn't care. Sign here, sign in the yard, out she goes. So that's January. Literally no calls, not even a call, nothing in January. February, I call her. I'm like, hey, like, Chenay, we got to do something. What's going on? Like, man, do you really think 147 is a number? She's like, no. I'm like, well, what do you think the number is? I got to get this thing sold. 135 maybe.
Wow.
It
just keeps going.
Dude, I'm like, I can't do that. How about let's try like 147 or 149? I don't even remember. I'm like, let's just try that. She's like, okay. We got a couple calls, no showings. March, same thing. I'm like, God, Shane, I can go to a couple grand more to see if we trigger anything. And we tried that. And then after that, I'm like, I've got to do something else. And here's the point I want people to understand when they say this is 2008. When you're in a real recession, a depression, or whatever that was, whatever the economists decide, it's like a fat kid chasing a tennis ball down the hill. You cannot catch the price drops. Like, it's going so fast.
Yeah.
You just can't get ahead of it, right? You keep making price drops, but that ball just keeps dropping. That thing dropped all the way to like 110.
Wow.
The only reason I got out of there was because I found a lease option buyer, because I had been to the REIA and I understood, because that lady couldn't get approved for a house either, right? Because she probably had to bag credit card debt, So it drives me up the wall when people are like, this is just like 2008. This is not even in the realm of 2008, and I'm happy to debate anybody that wants to talk about it.
What do you think that living through the market crisis taught you about resilience in this business?
Well, I mean, I think you're either resilient or you're not. I think you're either a push, and that comes from upbringing and things that you did as a kid. And, my dad was very, very strict on me, and, I don't know, you should know what tool I need on the engine, right? I was a Boy Scout leader. So, as a kid, so I was very, you have to think ahead a little bit. So I think some of that helped. I could tell you some of the things that it ingrained in me, as I saw people lose entire portfolios of 100 houses because they were over leveraged. So, as I built my portfolio over 100 houses, I built them all with the intention of, how do I get to the end? How do I get these things paid off as quick as possible? They were all owner finance. So I had them on very accelerated amortization schedules. And, we talk about boardroom, Kent Clothier, great guy. And he's like, bro, you could pull out like $4 million right now if you refinance these things. And I'm like, yeah, but Kent, man, I'm like less than 10 years away from having them paid off. I don't want to start again at 30. That might be the right schedule if you're 30 years old, right? But I was like 48 at the time. I'm like, dude, I don't want to start another 30-year process. And then if I do take out that $4 million, now I got a job to go place it. I'm like, I tell people, you do business your way. Just understand what's going to happen when you do these things. It may sound great to take out $4 million cash, tax free, but now my cash flow is going to drop. Now I'm more worried about vacancies, so for me and my business, and I tell people, do business your way. For me, it just wasn't the right move. But because I saw those guys here in town, like I literally saw their properties come up on the, the REO tapes that would be running around to buy these properties at a discount. And I'm just so afraid of that, getting over leveraged.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned being a Boy Scout leader. So
I was, yeah.
My dad was an Eagle Scout too. So
I'm an Eagle Scout right here.
Yeah. So I got the news from Hannah yesterday that you're an Eagle Scout. Not a lot of people know that about you. So
no, and I think it's a great program for kids. When you're, and they kind of, you go up in stages, right? You're a little patrol leader and you're in charge of 6 to 8 kids. And then, when you're the senior patrol leader, you're in charge of, like 30 to 40 kids. And you have to make decisions and plan ahead and think. Like, it's dopey stuff. Like, where are we going camping that month, right? Who's going to cook? What's the meals going to be? But at 12, 13, 14, like that really, it makes you think. It makes you kind of
teaches you about leadership and
it really does.
Discipline and all those different
and I'm
qualities.
gonna be honest, and I credit a lot of just the ability to how I became the youngest store manager in my company at 25, all the things that I learned, just those lessons at a young age, and and a lot of it just transfers every day into business, because just your brain is wired gets wired a little bit different.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I mean, for the camping, you got to plan like the planning for like logistics, delegation, who's gonna cook, and it's like that's actually
and Don, they're like, hey, and you're going out this weekend with a roll of twine, 4 matches dipped in wax, and a poncho, and you need to figure it out this weekend what you're going to do.
resilience. There we go. Tying it back.
Like, okay, I need to look at where I'm sleeping. Am I sleeping on rocks? Are there going to be snakes there? Is the water going to drain down, downhill and not into me? And can I put up a little lean-to so I don't have rain on me? And like, you know what I mean? Like, you got to start to think about these things ahead. And
For sure. Actually, one of our previous episodes, we had Stratton Brown on, and he was talking about very similar, like more from an athletic standpoint. That's actually really cool. Like you can, and we were talking about different ways that you can pull that in different life experiences, like Eagle Scouts, like or just Boy Scouts in general. That's a great way to pull and translate to business.
I remember this one time we were doing something. It's a short story. We were doing something, and I was building like this wall of like, I don't know, branches or something, whatever it was. And I was kind of half-assing it. And it was like a Saturday. And it went to the older kid, probably 20 or 22 years old. And I'm like, yeah, man, I'm all done. And he looked at it and he just said, is that the best you can do? And dude, that like hurt my soul. I looked at it and I'm like, nope. And I'm going to tell you that moment, there's a series of these in my life, but that moment, I always look at stuff and I'm like, is that really my best? No.
Yeah.
Like, and those things can be just seared into your soul. And that's the stuff that stays with you for the rest of your life. And again, all the time, like, is that your best?
Two things. My grandfather always used to say a half-assed job never helps anybody, which is something that's totally been ingrained in me my whole life. And, I think that we as adults, a lot of times, I think that we underestimate how certain life experiences, like, Stratton with the athletics, you with the Eagle Scout, me with my horses, all of that sort of thing, how that really truly like shapes your way of thinking growing up. And then I do also remember, because you mentioned how that, like what he said, hurt your soul. I remember the worst thing my mom ever could say to me is, I'm not mad, I'm disappointed in you. It's the worst.
Creme de la creme of the cut, man. Just
it's true, because I think kids these days have lost some of that stuff, but the pendulum swings, it'll come back.
Yeah,
absolutely. And by the way, it is funny with I saw a popcorn stand in front of a Kroger. It was in Vegas. So I'm like, I'll support the my dad was an Eagle Scout. I'm like, how much for sell me on a popcorn thing? And he's like, okay, yeah, it's $20.
I don't even eat that stuff, and I try not to eat Girl Scout cookies.
Yeah, and I'm like, $20, like, for all 3? Oh no, dude, just for the
it's
one.
A lot. Yeah, it's a lot.
Inflation is even infiltrating the Girl Scouts.
My sister they're south of Tampa. I can't remember, never remember the city she's in, but she's like a district Girl Scout leader, and she has a little boy. And I always are like, Stephanie, you're selling cookies, huh? I'm like, how much do you get off these boxes of cookies? She'll be like 75 cents. I'm like, dude, why don't I just cash app you $50? And it'll be like you sold 70 boxes. That's not the point. It's to teach these girls. I'm like, I know what the point is, Stephanie, but I don't need the cookies. Let me just send you the money and you go do the thing. But no, it is great. I remember having to go door to door and sell like little Tom Watt kits and all this nonsense. But that stuff it's so developmental. It really is.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And speaking of, did we want to go over any other guest questions?
No. Yeah, no, I think we're good to
amazing
shift a bit.
But yeah, for going back to like the Boy Scouts with the like the delegation aspect of it. I mean, it's one of the hardest skills for founders, especially ones that like to retain control. What did trusting a team look like for you in the early days, and maybe what shifted when you finally embraced it?
Well, I had no trust. I was actually, when I first started managing stores when I was in my early 20s, I was a maniac. Like, I was out of control. And I remember, I would have a couple of assistant managers, and, of course, I always wanted to do stuff myself. So I go marching down to the sales floor, and, Dawn, you'd be working on something. Like, Dawn, what are you doing? That's not what I told you to do. And you'd be like, oh, well, Chenay told me I had to do this stuff first. I'm like, oh, Chenay's my assistant manager. I'm like, oh, Okay. So, there's still a lot of learning to be involved there. And, some of that stuff I learned from managing people. I'm like, oh, I need to slow down a little bit. I need to ask questions first. And then, going through that process of managing stores with 60, 70, 100 people, you over time, you start to learn how to manage people, and you understand that, if I have 10 people, they need to be managed 10 different ways. Some people love it when you're really direct. Other people like, you got to pet on them a little bit. And, some people like to be coached a little bit differently. So certainly I learned a lot of those things. And I do think that gives and has given me an advantage in running my companies, because I come from that background of, I don't want to say corporate, but just management where there's some structured management. And I definitely think that's helped us excel and scale, right? Like, I understand SOPs, I understand processes. Also, my COO, Heather's amazing at that stuff. She was, bigwig at Amazon and really, helped build a lot of their processes out. So I think it's an evolving thing. I think we learn every day. Even over the last couple of years, I've settled down far more than than I used to be, and because you do have to trust the people that you empower, right? That people that are on your team, if you're going to scale out, right? I have to trust Heather and Hannah and Matthew, the video producer here. And like, you just have to know that they are doing their job. And if they're not, well, then you coach them and counsel them and hold them accountable. And if they're not the right person, then you replace them. But for me, it's always about making sure people understand the expectations, right? I see so many people that have these companies, and we get on community calls, and I try to help our clients that are running businesses. And, do your people understand the vision, right? Do they understand where you're going? Do they understand what the challenges are? Have you told them where they're falling short, and talk to them about how we can fix it? How can we work together? Here's what I'm expecting. I want you to win. I want you to make a lot of money, because if you make money, I make money, right? But so oftentimes people just expect, I'm going to hire a VA and they're going to know exactly what I want. No, dude, I don't care that somebody said they're trained. You need to teach them your culture, right? Because that's how you build a team. They have to all be walking in the same direction. They have to see the same vision. They have to want to be a part of that. And not everybody's a good fit, but over time, you collect those people, right? And that's your tribe. And they're the people that are on the mission with you.
I'm on a bunch of demo calls and stuff with new REsimpli users, newer investors too. And I will hear this a lot where it's like, I want to, in real estate in general, because it's the Robert Kiyosaki book. They want the passive income. They want to sit on a beach and just watch your checking account grow.
There's no passive income in wholesaling.
No.
People.
I mean, even in real estate in general, like, once you set up, once you buy the units, once you get them rented out, but like, there's even, you got to manage the property management company.
Yeah, exactly. I'm still pretty active in my 87 properties. I mean, not as much as I used to be, but managing the property manager and making decisions and pushing them.
For sure. What would be some good advice for somebody who wants to come in and make passive income, but like, what are proper expectations they should have?
Sure. Yeah. I'm going to tell you, and I've been doing this 23 years now. I don't know that there is true passive income unless I'm just investing money with somebody. Yeah. Right. Like,
like in a syndication.
A syndication, or a REIT or a stock market. There's going to be some level of involvement. That's why I tell people, if you're going to get into real estate, make sure you love it, because it's going to be a lot of work. And there's lots of ways to be in real estate, right? It's like being a doctor. Maybe the eye doctor, the nose doctor, the ear doctor, the toe doctor, the butt doctor, whatever, right? Same thing in real estate, right? I can do storage units, flips, landlording, land development, condo conversions, whatever, right? I can do all of those different things. And you got to find one that fits your personality and that you love, right? I own the biggest transactions company, but I wouldn't want to be a transaction coordinator. I wouldn't want to sit on the phone with short sales all day. I want to be talking to people. Obviously, I'm yappy, right? So that's the part that I enjoy, but I'm terribly unorganized. So I have to have people that can do that stuff for me.
Who keeps you organized, Heather?
I really need an executive assistant. Heather's so consumed with all the things that she does. Hannah does it a little bit. Really, the way that they keep me organized is they're able to take stuff off my plate, right? There's so much of the things, the daily business, that I don't really run. I'm mostly involved in marketing and messaging and relationships. I don't get involved in the TC's file unless a client calls me for some reason. I didn't book any of this. Like, this was Hannah. I literally was her and I were in a meeting in the conference room, and Matthew showed up at the door and he's like, "You have your podcast?" I'm like, "When?" "Now." "Okay." And I came in here and sat down and all of this was done. But you can't start out there. We all start out in the beginning, and you're in that hustle and grind mode. You have to figure it out. So, there are going to be things that you hear on this podcast and other podcasts and with your other guests where, you should skip trace every piece of mail that comes back and call that person direct. Awesome. Fantastic advice. How in the F do I do that when I'm the only person and I'm working a job and I'm doing the marketing and I'm doing the calls and I'm trying to do the dispo and I'm trying to talk to the title company you just can't, right? So you have to accept that I'm only going to do the core things, right? And you start to get maxed out. And, when you're maxed out and you have revenue, great. Now I can become two and I can hire one and I'm going to put everything into that person until that person maxes out, right? And then now I'm going to hire another one, right? And let that person train the next one. So it takes time, but that's the idea behind scaling. The idea behind scaling is not really for you to do less. It's you keep working hard, but now you can start to cover more of the pieces that you weren't able to do before. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
no,
absolutely.
Totally makes sense.
Yeah.
And now that we're talking about your TC company, no, that's amazing what you and your team. I'll give your team some credit too. Absolutely. So like you guys have worked over 8,000 or so case files and closed over $500 million in real estate. What patterns have you noticed in investors who make it long term versus those who just like fly, flash, and burn out?
Yep. Simple is scalable. Right? The simpler you keep this business, the better. If you try to do it all, it's going to be hard, right? So if I was operating by myself and a call comes in, great. I can wholesale it. I can novate it. I can sub to. I can creative finance. Lots of things I can do, right? And that's awesome for me because I'm the owner. And not that I'm any better, but like it just as the owner, all that stuff's in your head. But if I want to build out a system, right? If I want to build out a system, can I take all of that knowledge, right? And pop it into somebody that just sat down in my office or that's a remote worker? And the answer is no. If I do that, I'm going to overwhelm them and they're not going to know what to do. So I have to have a very simple, it's like a production line. Henry Ford, right? Like he literally laid this out. I was talking to one of my employees the other day. Like every person is like a cog in the wheel and they're the best at their section. And that's it. Like I don't try to train everybody to do everything, right? You do leads, boom, you hand it off to acquisitions, boom, they hand it off to dispo, boom, they hand it off, so it goes like that. But a great example of this, have you ever seen the movie The Founder with Michael Keaton, where he plays Ray Kroc?
Such
unbelievable
a great movie.
Right? McDonald's does like 2 billion hamburgers a year and they're run by 16-year-olds. How is that? How's that even possible? Right? We've all been to McDonald's. Ain't none of them that sharp. None of them are running a $10 or $15 million restaurant. How do they do it? Because they have a system that keeps it very simple. Right? So the other example I'll give is, I like Little Caesars pizza. It's all right. It's not the best, but it's not bad. It's $6 now. But if I go in there, there's a person who orders, there's a person who takes the stuff off the truck, there's a person who puts it in the freezer, there's a person who makes the dough, there's a person who puts it in the oven, a person who cuts it, and a person who sends it out the door through the cash register. Awesome, right? That's their business, pizza. Be in a business, wholesaling or innovations, right? Be in a business, stay in your lane and do it. If I go into Little Caesars and I'm like, hey man, I want a double stuffed gordito with no tomatoes, that place is going to come to its knees because it's not built for that, right? So don't build your business to try to do it all, right? The reason we did over 1,600 wholesale deals when we were running our business, because we stayed in our freaking lane, right? We didn't get distracted by, this storage unit lead came in. Yeah, it could be a great lead, but that's not what we do, right? We put the blinders on and we stayed focused and we did cash transactions. That's what we did. RJ Bates, our friend, right? Does cash transactions. That's what we do. We don't get distracted. What is it called? Hedgehog, right? Head down,
Hedgehog
going forward. Yep. That's what we do. That's what we did in our business. And that's the mistake that I see so often, with our clients or with other people after doing this for so many years, is it's so easy to get distracted, right? Like, I'm going to do, storage units. Great. And then lease options. That sounds sexy and easier, right? Oh, wait, land, realtor strategy, right? Like, and they just bounce around. And after a couple of months, they're like, effing real estate doesn't work. None of it works.
Yeah, well, it all works, and that's the problem. And
for
the I saw this one, like sub 2 and creative was like really taken off like a number of years ago. But like a lot of people would, if the cash transaction didn't work, they would try and make a bad deal work with terms.
Oh, I was on a call with someone this morning from Titanium, and they weren't doing this. This was a legitimate sub 2 deal, but yeah, so many people try to shoehorn the wrong strategy into every single deal. It's absolutely insane. Sometimes you can help people, sometimes you can't. You know what? You shouldn't be the novation guy. Make a partnership with a novation guy, send it over to Travis, get a little piece of the deal, and you stay focused on what you're doing. You can't do sub 2, send it over to your buddy who does sub 2, and you all collaborate and you all win together because you're all going forward fast. So that's my advice. People can do whatever they want. I just had some longevity and been able to do this for 23 years. So
David Old is the OG, guys. If you're listening to this, make sure you're taking heed of this advice.
Incredibly kind, but there are far better and smarter investors than me out there.
I don't know. You've been in it for a minute, David.
I'll say Gronk. I did it again, like I mentioned before the show.
I'm not on Gronk, so I'm interested to hear what.
Your superpower is called the King of Dispositions. That's your nickname in the industry. Is that true?
When I first started to go back to when we ran our wholesaling company, I had a couple of different partners, and they would usually come in and they would run the front side of the business, and I did all of the back side. We would re-underwrite the property after it came from acquisitions to make sure that it was sellable. Then we would run the dispo, and then I would do the transactions. So when I started coaching, what happened was people were calling me a lot. Hey, can you give me advice on this and all that type of stuff? So one of my mentors, Tim Mai out of Houston, he's like, you should start coaching. So I'm like, well, there really is nobody that coaches dispositions, and there really still isn't. So yeah, that's how I kind of got known for that. We did a bunch of big live events and Dispo Exposed and anyways, I did a lot of coaching when one of the big dispo platforms came out. Like I did all of their coaching and teaching people how to do it. So that's probably where some of that comes from. But that's really what led, honestly, to Easy REI Closings. Is I would get questions on dispo, but the other question is, hey man, I got this really weird deal and title's all messed up. What do I do? Right. So that's kind of what sort of led into the transactions company.
For sure. And speaking of that, like again, a large reason why wholesale deals don't go through is title issues and stuff like that. And that surprised the heck out of me, like, because it killed a lot of my deals. But like, why do traditional title companies struggle so much with like investor deals, and what makes the investor world so different?
So, I mean, I've got a statistic for you that is backed up by you guys and First American Title Insurance Company that 50% of all deals do not close. Sherrod puts that out every single year. That's a fact. Like people think I'm making that up. Like that's a real number. Like that's as real as there is. And within that 50%, that kind of gets broken into two buckets, right? One, the wholesaler they don't know how to comp and they price it too high and no buyer will buy it. But the other one is think about what we do as investors, right? What do? We go out and look for people with problems. Also why title companies hate us, but we look for bankruptcy and foreclosure and divorce and evictions and bad tenants and job transfers, and we search out all of these problems and then we stack them together, right? And then we call them and then we get it under contract and we take it to the title company and like, oh, what do you mean it's got to go through bankruptcy? What do you mean I need to go through probate? What's an affidavit of heirship? What's a monument of title? Why are there? I don't understand why you can't close this. Well, because they're not at a place that understands what we do. They went to some title company on the corner that's, built for realtors, refi and refinance, not our madness, right? Because all we do is bring problems. And they themselves don't know how to fix the problem because they read Rich Dad Poor Dad or saw a podcast and like real estate's awesome. You can make a lot of money and like just go talk to people and lock it up and then just take it to a title company and they'll solve it for you. And none of that is true. Like none of those things are true. So that was the reason, when we sat down, man, a little over 4 years ago. We've been kind of out in the public for 4 years. And but that was what we realized that the industry needed. There was nobody that was helping with this. All the coaches and we're like, just go find an investor friendly title company, which what does that even mean? Like you call up a title company, you get some secretary at the front and you're like, are you investor friendly? And she's like,
sure.
Well, yeah. We deal with this builder who buys lots and he builds on them. Yeah, we do investors. Like that doesn't mean they're going to do some novation and understand what an attorney in fact is, and they're not going to blow up your deal, or they can do an assignment on a deal and figure out like that.
Wholesaling's illegal.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So
you're ripping off little old ladies.
Dude, I've had that conversation with a title agent.
I'm sure.
who killed one of our deal or almost killed one of our deals. He was an attorney, and he told the seller that that guy shouldn't be selling us this house for this cheap. And it was here in Chattanooga. I flew out of my office down there and I blasted into his office. I'm like, dude, have you looked at this property? No. Have you been by it? No. Did you even look at it on our website? No. Did you ask the guy why he's selling it for this cheap? Well, no, I just told him I thought he was selling it too cheap. I'm like, bro, the ceilings are 7 foot. It needs repairs every place. It needs windows. It needs all of these things. How do you think this is worth whatever you're saying? I'm like, your job is to do the paperwork. That's your job. Do the paperwork. If you can't do that, I will take it someplace else and I will have your bar license. Like, do not do that. You're way outside your lane. So anyways, sorry.
Speaking of attorneys.
I'm pumped, dude. Let's
no.
I'm gonna do a quick lift. I'm gonna do a workout now. I'm back, dude. Let's go.
Speaking of attorneys, Hannah was telling me about a Dr. No, or an attorney that you guys nicknamed Dr. No. But she said he actually helped you guys like get really good at TC.
Yeah. So yes. So in the early days, when I first moved to Chattanooga, investor friendly title company, we got to find one. So talked to some other investors and they said, hey, go see this guy, Ray. He owns First Title Insurance Co. They're still active here in Chattanooga. And so he had this guy that worked for him and his name was Jeremy. And here's what would happen. Again, like I'm like every other investor. I'm out looking at boarded up houses and, all just the worst of the worst, right? Problem
shit
people.
Boxes.
Thank you. I don't know if I could swear on here. So I go in there and,
come on, David,
I'm like, I drop my contract on his desk and I'm like, Jeremy, I got this other deal. He's like, okay, tell me about it. And, I'm like, well, it's this old lady. I just came from her house. She's like, man, she's like 97, still kicking. It's amazing. But, she wants to move into assisted living or move in with her grandkids, something like that. So she really needs to sell the house. And he pulls it up real quick and he's like, oh, well, like, who's Joe Smith? Whatever. I'm like, oh, well, I think he passed away. He's like, oh, you need to go through probate. And I'm like, fucking Jeremy. This lady, like, she's 97. She has no money. Like, I told her I was going to take care of this. There's got to be something we could do because this was happening like 2 out of every 5 times I went in there, right? It was always some problem. We can't close this. And I'm like, I did slam my hand on his desk and I looked at him and he looked at me and I'm like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. That was a bad move. But I'm like standing my ground because I was mad, right? Because I literally just told this woman we were going to help her. And he leans back in his chair. He was like kind of a bigger, bald fella. And this is why we had nicknamed him Dr. No, because it was always no. But anyways, he leans back and he's like, well, I guess, man, if you can get her to give you a death certificate and bring me an obituary and get like 2 independent parties that say she's the only owner and there were no kids, I guess we can get this closed. And I'm like, thank you.
That's it.
That's awesome. Right. So I'm skipping my big butt out into the parking lot. Cause I remember the parking lot was out and back and I stopped before I got to my car and I turned around and I looked and I'm like, how many deals has this guy killed that there was a solution?
Yeah.
Dude, it makes me want to cry. I get so pissed off. Like I'm telling you, I all of a sudden I went from happy to pissed in a second. And I'm like, how effing many deals did I literally crumble up? Which at the time, $8, $10, $12, $15,000, back then was a lot. Mm-hmm. And that's when I decided, like, we are gonna solve these things. We are gonna learn to ask better questions. We are going to figure out, like, we're not just going to take no for an answer, right? And that was one of the reasons we were successful in our own wholesale business and when we went nationwide. And that, is what we instill in our coordinators, right? Because Heather and I are real investors, right? We've run this business. I understand what it's like to need that closing. I tell my team all the time, little fictional person, I'm like, hey, little Bobby in Phoenix needs this deal to close. It may be $10,000, but this is his whole life, right? He's got kids and a VA and an office and a wife and a girlfriend, hopefully not both, but this deal needs to close on time, right? Mm-hmm. Get that freaking thing over the finish line. It's a cash deal. I don't care that the contract says 30 days from now, you got a buyer, you got a seller, everybody's ready to go knock it out and let's get done. Let's move on with life. And that's the urgency and the culture that we have with our TCs because I understand. I know what it's like. Like the power's getting shut off in 4 days. How can we get this closing? Right? Like I've been there. So
and
anyway,
and for anybody listening to this, Easy REI Closings, that what he just said is your best teammate, man. Like you give them a shot, man, because they can get deals done that
nobody
may
else
not be
can.
easy.
Yeah.
But
and man, I'm never going to say we're going to close every single deal and
No.
we're perfect. Like, we're people like everybody else. There are some deals that are just such a rat's nest. We'll work it if you want, but we might say, dude, this is a $2,000 deal and it's going to take 8 months. Do you want your coordinator working on this or on something else? Up to you, man. It's you're the client. We'll do whatever you want. But just sometimes, but if ever it's a no, like, hey, we can't close this deal, but hey, here are 3 options. Like, let us at least tell you what we can do. Let us connect your seller with a probate attorney or bankruptcy attorney or divorce attorney, whatever it is, right? And we're going to stay with the deal, but it's just not going to close in 10 days like you thought. So we always try to always offer solutions.
100%, and that's honestly a big game changer too, because like as a newer wholesaler, like you don't know why a deal can't close, but if you bring them more deals like that, then it's like okay, what to look out for and what questions to ask before even you lock it up.
Right.
So
because there's nothing worse than having a deal die. We don't like that. Our coordinators don't like that. They're incentivized by closing percentages and speed and all that type of stuff. So I feel like some days our coordinators push these deals more than some of our clients are like, just let it go. And the coordinator's like, no. We're really close. I can make this happen. Just do not cancel the contract. We're so close. Yeah. We can get this over the line.
I love it. No, that's amazing.
That's great. David, so I know that, you've been a landlord for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
And I know you've got some crazy tenant horror stories. I was told about a porn room.
Porn room. Oh my God. That's what you want to talk about? All right.
Why not?
Sure.
Real talk.
Podcast.
Real talk.
David.
All right. So, God. So we were doing this house in Red Bank, Tennessee, which is North Shore of Chattanooga. And it was a hoarder house. My brother had contracted it. And so when we were wholesaling, we would actually clean out houses. And sometimes it was a little bit, sometimes it was a lot. But the thought process for us was, hey, if we're going to present this house to buyers, sometimes our buyers might be new investors, right? Sometimes they're experienced, doesn't matter. But if I just spend a couple bucks and clean it out, maybe that new investor who's a doctor and he goes and looks at it, he sees at least it needs repairs, but it's not left a mess. Because if it's left a mess, the first thing they're going to think of is, if I put a tenant in here, they're going to do this, right? So does that make sense? Right. So that's why we cleaned out houses. Sometimes did we lose and not sell it, but we paid or we went over and cleaned out a house? Yeah. But in general, it worked out for us. We sold faster and we sold for higher assignment fees. So we've got this house. It's a hoarder house. Literally, there's a pathway through the living room that's this wide, and there's books everywhere. This guy, like, half the power didn't work, so he had George Dickel bottles, half gallons with candles in it. It was terrible, legitimate hoarder. And so we had 2 dumpsters delivered, and I had a couple of labor-ready guys show up. And I'm outside and I'm kind of getting them going. I'm like, hey, let's start picking up the stuff outside, throw in these 2 dumpsters. We need to get this going. And my brother comes out and he's like, hey, have you been in the bedroom? I'm like, Tom, I don't have time for that right now. I'm doing this. He says, no, I want you need to come in and look at this. I'm like, okay. So wind my way in. It's a little 2-bedroom, 1-bath house. And I look in, I'm like, okay, it's a mess. What? He's like, no. Go in. And I'm like, I move really fast. I'm like, I don't have time for this shit, but okay. So I step inside and I'm like, okay. And he's like, just look around. And I start looking and I'm like, oh, ooh. And the first thing I turned around to leave and he's like, no. Look above the bed. And I look above you sure you guys want this story? Cause it's a little dicey.
We love this story.
Okay. All right. I'm just telling you, I was warned. You may have to cut it out later. So above the bed are these
this is getting turned into a short.
There are these 3 galvanized eye bolts cranked into the plaster, and I'm like,
eyeballs?
Like, you guys can't see, like, arms like tied up to the bed. I'm like, oh, okay. Now I want to also tell you that this guy died and he was a little bit of a bigger fella and they could not get the gurney into his bedroom. So they had to take the window out, take him straight out through the window and put the window back in. There are so many stories with this house, but I'm like, okay. So I turn around to go and he's like, oh no, look more, look at the floor. I'm like, oh, Thomas. Okay. So I walk in a little bit and it's not that big of a bedroom. It's like 12 by 12, 10 by 12. I don't know. It ain't that big. And there are sex toys and scarves and ropes, like he was in business yesterday, everywhere. And I'm like, ooh. I'm like, okay. And I start to leave, and he's like, oh, no, no, no. He's like, open the drawer. I'm like, I am not opening these drawers. He's like, use your foot. I'm like, so I start pulling some of these drawers open. Oh, this guy could be running an Adam and Eve shop out of that. It was icky. I'm like, okay,
Wow.
I've seen enough. And I start to leave. What's it go? Oh, no, no, no. Look up.
But wait, there's more.
Yeah, but wait, there's more. I look up, and above the door, because I couldn't see it, because there's like this like 1 by 12 on the wall, just going above the door all the way across the wall. And you ever see those little plastic magazine racks? Well, there's like 40 of them up there. And there are adult magazines in every one, and they're labeled Playboy, Hustler, Barely Legal, all of them. No kiddie stuff. Like, let's at least rejoice in that there was no kiddie stuff, but there were a lot.
Goodness. Jeez.
And right. Had to be some high point here. And I'm like, oh Lord, what a connoisseur.
It was just Playboy, guys.
Yeah, it was just Playboy. So I'm like, oh Lord.
The articles are great in Playboy, at least they used to be.
Okay,
so I don't know if you guys have ever hired labor-ready guys. They're not Harvard grads, right? So they start cleaning out this house, and they are entranced. Like, they're in there going through stuff. I'm like, nope. I'm paying you guys $15 an hour. Out to the trash. Well, can we have this? I'm like, you set it aside by the dumpster, and I don't care if you come back and get it later. But you're on the clock. We're getting this stuff out. In the other bedroom, so you didn't know this was going to be this much. In the other bedroom, there's filing cabinets.
Quick access.
And Polaroids of girls and women. And it was so
Who
much.
was this guy? I mean,
well, he was a former police officer.
Oh, that's not shocking.
And also, I mean, he was like spying on the neighbors. There was a phone book in this bookshelf. We pulled it out, and it was
What a
like
creep.
dog-eared, and he had like notes on everybody in the neighborhood. It was a weirdo.
Wow.
And then in the kitchen, pinned up like underneath the cabinets above the countertop is like, old yellowed like newspaper clippings of like when the peep shows were at these different places. It was a lot. It was a lot.
Wild world of off-market real estate, folks. You
Yes.
never know what you're going to find.
So there's been a lot of those. We'd go into some houses where the tenants had just bailed out in the middle of the night, and there's, 18 inches of just clothes literally all throughout the house. Mm-hmm. And you have to use a picker to pick it up and throw it in the bag because you don't know what you're reaching into. And they're, human feces, needles, all kinds of crazy stuff.
The amount of times I've seen a house with pee and like milk jugs is astounding.
Oh, dude.
The amount of times I've heard about houses with
why is
pee
that
and milk
normal?
jugs is astounding.
I don't know. I had one of my rentals where the guy had the power turned off and I didn't know, and he was pooping in a 5-gallon bucket. And I opened the door, and I have a bad sense of smell. And I'm like, he started to leave. I'm like, nope. Get that effing bucket and you take it out there and dump it out. Like, I'm not doing this stuff. But toilet's full, and and it's honestly the worse the house is, and people are going to get mad for me saying this, but like the more Bibles and hymnals there were, it was wild, and sometimes people would be like, well, why don't you, take those clothes and give them to Goodwill? I'm like, I would love to, but they want everything pre-washed, and I'm just not, I don't have the time to do that. Right. But, we'd find stuff with like, kids' birth certificates, and my wife at the time, she would like save it and try to track people down, but like it was all the time. It's crazy what you come across and find. One of the funniest things was there was this house we were cleaning out, and it was like the middle of winter, and it was really cold, and they had left all this stuff, and they had left a fish tank, and there was like a fish just frozen right in the middle of the tank. I wish I had a picture. I've gone back to the video to try to grab it because it's
I
like
have fish. Like,
I don't know if you thought it out. Maybe that fish would have come back to life, cryogenically frozen. But I wish I had a picture of it.
Captain America fish, just
yeah, exactly right. Frozen in the ice, coming back to save the universe. But yeah, dude, there's just so many stories like that. So many.
I mean,
I love stories like that. I mean, I really, really do. Yeah.
Yeah, I took one of the dispo girls. I was going to look at this house up on Signal Mountain. She's like, "Oh, can I go with you?" I'm like, "Ah, sure." And it'd been like vacant for a long time, and yeah, that that's a Playboy. I'm like, that's the least of all the things we're going to find in this house. I just kicked it with my foot over into the corner. I'm like, don't touch it. Don't be touching it. I don't know what's on there, but yeah, all the time, drugs, and it's crazy.
No,
Squatters, people hopping out the back window as you're coming in the front door.
That part's scary to me.
It is. Yeah. There have been a couple of houses where I would not go into without somebody else there with me.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna have Billy Fernandez on here eventually, Chenay, and he had
next Wednesday.
He had a story. I can't wait to ask him about this. There was he's always strapped. He went into an appointment and there were twins, and like twin guys in rural Texas, man.
Yeah,
and they like started coming on to him, and Billy's like a big like D1 football type dude.
Yeah.
And they like that was the only time he told me that he's like, I almost pulled because like he was about to get taken
There's
advantage
one
of.
House
delivered.
I contracted it over the phone. It was this old house that was boarded up, not too far from here. And I contracted it for like $6,000 or something. I'm like, oh, what a deal. So I go over there and I knew it was boarded up. I took the door off the board off the front and I started to go in, and so it was a hallway and there were 2 doors, but like 6 feet in. So you had to go in, and then there was like, you go to the living room or go to a bedroom, and then the hallway went into the kitchen, and there was like sheets and blankets, like stuff everywhere. And I looked at that from the door and I'm like, nope. Because I knew if I went past those doors and somebody was in there, like I couldn't get out. Right.
Yeah.
And I'm not afraid of a lot of things, and I've usually got a pretty knife and some stuff with me, but I'm like, not doing this. I put the door back on, called a couple buddies. I'm like, we all go in together. Okay, great. House is empty. Clean it out. But yeah, there's some places like I wouldn't send my wife or one of the girls that work for me to go in there.
Man, meth is a hell of a drug, David. So
yeah, it's crazy out there.
For sure. But I mean, on a more serious note, David, this has been an absolute masterclass. Like, appreciate you
of craziness.
Of crazy, especially at the end, man. No, we love those stories because I mean, like you'll come across those crazy things. Like it's the world of off-market real estate. Again, people have problems and we solve them. And
there's a lot of people out there that have problems. Just go to Walmart at 10 o'clock at night and look around. These are your people in their flip-flops and slippers and pajama jams. That's who you're buying from.
Just throw a bandit sign in the freezer aisle, man.
That's it.
Think outside the box, guys.
We used to do so many closings. My agent here in town, she would call me after and be like, David, where do you find these people? I'm like, Patty, I don't know, man. They just, they
need help.
Wild. They need help. They need help, and that's
they do need help.
Mm-hmm. No agent is going to deal with those types of properties. This is what we're here for, right? To help sellers and solve problems and make some money.
Absolutely. And I want to tie it back to David sleeping on the floor with the mattresses back in Chattanooga, first day. What would you say to David now?
Yeah, I mean, probably no different than the thoughts I had is, do not give up, right? It works. We know it works. Even though I'd never been able to wholesale a house before then, came out of Orlando and went to the REIs. I saw people wholesaling every day. So here's the thing. Like you said it earlier, Don, all the strategies work, right? You can't do them all, but pick one, right? And go as deep and as hard into that as possible. Make sure that strategy matches your personality and what you like to do, right? You can't force yourself to do something else just because you're going to make money at it, right? I don't want to buy apartment complexes. It's just not my thing. It's, I'm just not built for that. That's not what I want to do. So yeah, I tell people I was too dumb to quit, right? That's the mentality you have to have. There is no quit. When I say we burn the boats, and I don't recommend this for people, like if you're single, great, do it. Do not do it with a wife, 2 kids, and 3 fat dogs. It was the stupidest, most irresponsible thing ever. Luckily it worked. Luckily it worked out really good. But because we were just absolutely unstoppable, not in any great way, we were just too dumb to quit. We had to do it. We were having ramen noodles and, we were using TV, antennas on the TV to watch stuff, right? Like we just had to figure it out because there literally was no other option. And, that's just the mentality that we have to have. We're always working on our business. We're always tweaking it. We're always molding it like clay. And, we talked about earlier where I said you have to know where you're going. Well, that's going to change over time. Right? The business changes, the market changes. But the thing about us being real estate investors is we are light on our feet, right? We can pivot faster than any government regulations can come out. So, and then Now you have great partners, right? You have you guys, right? For leads and CRM and Dispo and all of the things, right? Lean into those, right? If you're going to pay for REsimpli, God darn it, use it, right? Use it for what it is. It will amplify everything that you're doing. So, whatever software or coach that you're using, show up on the god darn calls, right? Make sure you understand how to use a system. If you're using the CRM, get on with Dawn, get on with Chenay, get on with whoever it is that's going to help you run your business. These people did not create the software for fun, right? To collect a couple bucks from you every night or every month. They made it so that your business can be successful. And that's what you need to be doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you don't want this to be a hobby, if you're a hobby, don't do any of it. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Of course. But, I mean, you definitely hit on a lot of great points there, David. And if anybody's listening to this and you want to connect with David, where can people find you?
The easiest place, Instagram. It's David Olds, REI. It's very simple. I'm super easy to find. If you want help with your transactions, easy REI Closings, or I'm sure you guys have a link you can drop in here.
Absolutely.
This is what we do. This is our full-time gig. We have hundreds and hundreds of clients, all over the country. So people that are doing one deal every 3 months and people that are doing 40 deals in a single month. So, the system works no matter how many deals you're working. But ultimately, your goal, if you're listening to this, should be marketing, talking to sellers, marketing, talking to sellers, right? That's what you need to be doing. You do not need to be Googling what a monument of title in Texas is, right? That's not how you win. Those are distractions, right? You don't need to be, on
developing
Podio.
your own CRM.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Building a CRM. Why? Like, that's the dumbest thing ever. I don't even understand when people say they're building a CRM. There's like 3 great solutions in the marketplace. This is one of them. God darn, use it. It's very simple. Put your stuff in there, work the system, and focus on revenue generating activities. Pick up a good market, get leads, talk to sellers.
Bingo. That's it. Revenue generating activities. I was going to say that.
There you go.
That's the target, man. And as always, thanks for coming on, David.
Yeah,
really
man,
appreciate you, man. A lot of good stuff we went over today. And as you listening, thank you for tuning in to Real Talk with REsimpli. If you enjoyed this episode, definitely share it with someone in your circle who needs to hear it. And don't forget to hit that follow and subscribe button. And we'll put up all the links in the show notes. David, appreciate you, man.
Guys, thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun.
It was
Absolutely.
awesome. Until next time, everybody, keep it real.